negotiation. So, about 2 weeks ago, the league had offered an extension, but at the time we felt that the circumstances necessary for our agreement to an extension weren't quite met. But in the last few days,
the deal didn't collapse quietly. It froze in midair, and the shockwave is now rippling through every corner of the WNBA. What looks like a calm moratorium on paper is actually a high-stakes standoff where time itself has become a weapon. This moratorium is not peace. It is not compromise. It is a pause so tense that both sides are holding their breath, knowing that whatever comes next could permanently reshape the WNBA's power structure.
Back in 2020, and also in unprecedented times, we didn't anticipate what we would have to continue to bargain for after we had signed it, given the bubble season. But I think
when negotiations failed and the clock struck the deadline, the league and the players' union did not shake hands. They stepped back, locked the doors, and agreed to freeze everything in place while staring each other down. At face value, a moratorium sounds procedural, almost boring. In reality, it is one of the most dangerous phases a sports league can enter. The old rules stay in place, new deals are stalled, and uncertainty spreads faster than any press release can control. Nothing officially breaks, but nothing truly moves forward either. That limbo is where resentment grows.
With an agreement of an extension, albeit we wanted to maintain the urgency to reach what we want and know will be a transformational CBA by also including the right for us to terminate the extension at any time with 40.
The league office is framing this as stability. The union is framing it as survival. Both are technically correct, which is exactly why this moment feels so combustible. For the first time in years, the WNBA is growing rapidly in public while quietly fracturing internally. Negotiations did not fail because people stopped talking. They failed because the two sides are no longer arguing about numbers. They are arguing about philosophy. Ownership wants predictability, controlled growth, and guardrails around spending. The players want structural respect, not just bigger checks under the same old framework. Those goals collide in a way that cannot be solved by spreadsheets alone.
Well, staying on sports here at 5:19, a possible strike has been averted for the WNBA and the Players Union. According to ESPN and The Athletic, both sides agreed on Thursday to extend.
Behind closed doors, the tone has shifted dramatically compared to past bargaining cycles. In earlier eras, the union fought for incremental improvements while acknowledging the league's financial fragility. That dynamic is gone. Today's players believe the league is no longer fragile, and they have data, ratings, charts, and sponsorship headlines to back that belief. Ownership, however, sees those same numbers as projections, not guarantees. The moratorium freezes free agency at the exact moment it should be exploding. Nearly the entire veteran class is technically available, which would normally spark chaos, leverage plays, and bidding wars. Instead, teams are stuck preparing offers they cannot finalize, while players quietly plan for futures that may not involve the league at all.
The current collective bargaining agreement through November 30th. It was set to expire today, which would have opened the door to a possible players' strike or a lockout by owners. The disagreement.
This is where the shocking part begins. Even without an official strike, the power balance has already shifted in subtle ways. Agents are advising players to wait, not because waiting guarantees a better deal, but because signing too early could lock them into a structure that may look outdated the moment a new CBA is finalized. That hesitation alone disrupts the league's rhythm. At the same time, teams are nervous. Front offices are preparing for multiple financial scenarios, unsure whether the next agreement will fundamentally rewrite salary tiers or simply adjust them upward. That uncertainty makes long-term roster planning nearly impossible, especially for franchises that rely on veteran leadership to stay competitive. The league insists its priority is improving salaries and the player experience, and on paper, the proposed numbers look massive compared to the past. But context matters. Players are no longer comparing their pay to where the league was 5 years ago. They are comparing it to where the league claims it is going. That psychological shift is everything. But hold on and hit that subscribe button so you can get more recent tea of WNBA. The presence of high-profile young stars has accelerated this tension. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Paige Buchers are not at the negotiation table financially yet, but they are absolutely part of the leverage conversation. Their popularity has reframed how value is discussed. even though their rookie contracts keep them locked into the system for now. That contrast is quietly fueling resentment among veterans who feel they carried the league through lean years only to watch a new era reap the attention. There is also old tea resurfacing that ownership would prefer stayed buried. Former players and retired veterans are increasingly vocal about broken promises from previous CBAs, moments when growth was promised but never delivered in meaningful ways. Those stories are circulating now because players are questioning whether patience has ever truly paid off. The moratorium preserves the old agreement, but emotionally, the old agreement is already dead. Nobody believes in it anymore. It exists purely because labor law demands continuity, not because either side feels represented by it. What makes this especially volatile is the looming threat that neither side wants to trigger, but both are preparing for. A strike from the union would be disastrous in a moment of growth. A lockout from ownership would risk alienating new fans just as the league is gaining cultural relevance. The fact that both options are being whispered rather than announced says everything about how fragile this moment is. Publicly, leaders are projecting calm professionalism. Privately, there is fear. Fear that if this drags on too long, players will start making individual decisions that undermine collective bargaining altogether. Fear that stars will prioritize overseas leagues, brand deals, or media careers that offer more autonomy and less frustration. The moratorium also exposes an uncomfortable truth about timing. The league is expanding, courting new markets, and selling optimism while simultaneously telling its workforce to wait. That contradiction is hard to ignore. Expansion signals confidence, but stalled negotiations signal caution. Players are reading that mixed message very clearly. Another layer of tension comes from the profit-sharing debate itself. Players see revenue sharing as validation that they are true partners in growth. Ownership sees it as premature, arguing that revenue without profitability is not something that can be meaningfully divided. This is not just a financial disagreement, it is a disagreement over identity. Is the WNBA still a developing league that requires protection and patience? Or is it a major sports property ready to operate on equal footing with established leagues? The answer depends entirely on who you ask, and that disagreement sits at the heart of this moratorium. What is rarely said out loud is how uneven the impact of this standoff is across the player population. Superstars can afford uncertainty. Mid-tier veterans and fringe roster players cannot. For them, every delayed decision has real consequences for housing, training, and career longevity. That imbalance creates internal pressure within the union that ownership is acutely aware of. The moratorium gives the illusion of order, but it is actually amplifying anxiety. Teams are hesitant to commit, players are hesitant to sign, fans are confused by the silence, and silence in moments like this breeds speculation. Some believe this pause is simply a cooling off period before a deal gets done. Others believe it is the calm before a much louder confrontation. History offers examples of both outcomes, but the WNBA's unique financial ecosystem makes predictions especially risky. There is also the question of trust. Negotiations do not break down this late unless trust has already eroded. Statements about willingness to compromise ring hollow when deadlines pass without resolution. Both sides feel disrespected, and that feeling does not disappear just because talks resume. This moment is critical because it will define how future generations of players view the league. If the moratorium leads to meaningful structural change, it will be remembered as a painful but necessary pause. If it leads to superficial adjustments and unresolved tension, it will be remembered as the moment the league missed its chance. The presence of a moratorium also sends a message to sponsors and partners, even if it is carefully managed. Stability is currency in sports business, and prolonged uncertainty can make even enthusiastic investors nervous. The league knows this, which is why it is working so hard to project control. What makes this situation truly shocking is that both sides are technically acting within their rights while simultaneously pushing the system to its limits. No rules are being broken, no games are canceled, yet the foundation feels shaky. This is not just about money, it is about dignity, control, and who gets to define success. Players want acknowledgement that their labor is the growth engine. Ownership wants assurance that the engine will not overheat the machine. The moratorium keeps the lights on, but it does not answer the underlying question of where the league is going. Growth without agreement is not progress. It is tension deferred. As negotiations continue, every day under the old framework feels heavier. The longer this drags on, the harder it will be to convince players that patience is a virtue rather than a trap. This is why the moratorium feels less like a solution and more like a countdown to a deal, a confrontation, or a reckoning that forces both sides to finally decide what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. The moratorium stopped the clock, but it didn't shouldn't stop the pressure. When time starts moving again, something is going to give, and everyone knows it. Let us know your views in the comments below.